What's going on, everybody? John Eric Poli here with my MMA news, and today's guest will be fighting Carlos Candelario at UFC Vegas 64 on November 5th. Pleased today to be joined by Jake Hadley. Jake, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, no problem, mate.
So let's get into the specifics of this fight, and we're actually going to take a little step back in time here. Your last outing, I know didn't go your way, but it was your first UFC experience, and typically in life, the more we do things, like kind of the easier things get. And I was wondering, given that that was the first time with the new promotion, being inside of the octagon, did you take anything away from that first experience that may have been beneficial then for the long run, as to maybe how things run, or maybe just as far as nerves go and that type of thing?
Well, I didn't feel no more nervous than any other fight because obviously I fought on contenders before. I fought on Bellator. I've won two world titles, so it weren't like a nerves thing or anything like that. I think the guy who I fought, Alan Nascimento, he was a top class fighter, one of the best in the division, and he beat me once, so I've picked up a few things from the fight. You know what I mean? Gone back to the drawing board, learnt a few things from that, and I look, I've improved on that in the gym. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. I know you talk about going back, watching it, improving in the gym, but I also want to know just along the lines too of the first loss of your career. How was like the mindset coming into this when every fighter handles things differently? Like for you, was it just no big deal? I learned from it, go back to the gym and improve on it, or did it take a little while? Were you angry? Were you upset? Did it take a little while to get over? It's kind of like the mindset now.
Well, obviously it was hard for me. I haven't lost as a professional before. Um, I honestly thought there weren't a man alive that could beat me, especially over 3 rounds. I know that there's a potential that you can get caught in a fight and not take, but to be beat over 3 rounds was a little bit of a shock to me. You know what I mean? But I've been getting over that the past couple of months. You know what I mean? I've been in the gym and been getting over that and looking to improve on that. You know what I mean? So yeah.
And just one other thing before we get into the real, like just specifics for this fight and this opponent that I wanted to ask you about. If I had this right, 3 times you had fights booked in the UFC, ended up getting canceled. That's got to be super frustrating. Just kind of, what's that been like having to deal with that? Obviously, you want to get back in there, you want to keep competing, and you keep having fights fall through.
Well, the thing is actually I've been injured before in my career, or you know, but I've never had an actual injury that's forced me out of a fight until I've signed to the UFC. So it just seems to be a lot of bad luck over the last 2 years, with like injuries and having pullouts myself because before I competed on Contender Series, they told me it was going to happen in June. It didn't happen until September, and then my visa fell through, and I ended up fighting in October. Then I picked up an injury. I couldn't fight on the London card, and etc. etc. So, it's been, and then I've picked up my first loss, and then I got injured during the fight, and I was pushed back even further. So it was like, it's been a few ups and downs, but you know, it's just a test from God, and you know what I mean. It's just how bad do you want it, and I'm back. I'm training hard, and I feel good.
Yeah, I say a series of unfortunate events there, but you could put all that behind you now with the win here on November 5th. Let's get into some of the specifics for that fight now. Obviously, you're in training camp. As soon as we wrap up today's interview, you're headed right back to the gym there. So, just how's your camp been going?
Yeah, man, it's been going good. Training hard with my teammate in Birmingham. You know what I mean. So it's been good, man. I've been training specifically for this opponent as normal. Done a lot of watching tape of him. Training camp's going great.
And one of the things too from the gym that I didn't realize, it seems like over the years, like whenever it comes to a lot of whether it be the UK or just Europe in general, like people kind of almost feel like, oh, it's not as strong as it is everywhere else, which is, however you want to assess that. But I'm looking like through your Instagram, I'm like, well, there's Leon and Fabian Edwards, there's yourself. A lot of other high level guys and cage warriors are just about ready to make this jump over to the UFCs and Bellators and whatnot. All of a sudden, it's like, Man, there's quite a high level guys over there in the UK. What's this growth just been like? Obviously, I'm sure you've obviously been growing with it and have been a part of it as well. So, where's kind of been the big growth over there in the UK with the sport?
Yeah, man, it's been growing a lot. The MMA in the UK. When I first started doing training, any sort of martial arts training, there was literally no one in the UFC from Birmingham. Eventually, one of my coaches now actually was one of the first guys to sign to the UFC from Birmingham, Vaughan Lee. And now there's been about five or six people from Birmingham now who's made it to the UFC. So, and obviously you got Leon, who's a world champion. You got over high level guys, Cage Warriors champions and stuff. I do think it's a harder path through the UK scene because a lot of guys in the UK to fight the best geezers, like as in like if you go through Cage Warriors, you're fighting UFC caliber opponents in Cage Warriors. That's the difference between me and Candelario. For instance, he's fought a lot of journeymen, a lot of like tomato cans before he made it on the Contender Series, where I'd fought a lot of legit guys, for Cage Warriors world titles and on Bellator European Series and on EFC and etc. So maybe I think one of the reasons why a lot of Americans get picked up easier is because they're local and they don't cost much for the UFC to send them out. Um, I actually think there's a lot of high level guys in the UK who should have been in the UFC and haven't been in the UFC just because they've got to go a harder route there.
Yeah, I was gonna say that Cage Warriors promotion really is something too. Like just look at it over the years too of all this the number of guys that have wanted to win championships and be right up towards the top in the UFC have all really came out of that promotion. They really do a fantastic job of picking up a lot of high level talent. But I do want to now talk about your opponent a little bit. I know you had mentioned you feel that you've had the stronger road to this point going through that Cage Warriors promotion. You said you thought he fought a lot of journeymen and whatnot, but just tell us a little bit about him though, specifically as far as a skill set and what you've kind of been seeing out of him as you've been studying him now for the last few weeks.
I think he's obviously a good opponent. Anyone who gets to the UFC is good. You know what I mean? He comes from I believe he was Golden Gloves amateur boxing champion. I believe he might even be a black belt in jiu-jitsu. If not, he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. So he's quite well rounded. He's quite tough. I think his main strength is his toughness. Um, but he ain't on my level in any aspect of the game. You know what I mean? Striking, I'm better than him. Even if he was to say let's have a boxing match, I'd punch the fuck out of him. You know what I mean? So and now we're adding kicks, knees, and elbows in. Like it's just dead for him. So I'll beat him up in every area of the game. I'm more experienced than him. That might sound funny when he's got more fights than me. He's actually got one more fight than me, but like I said before, he's fought a lot of. I'd say he's only his last three fights. He's fought legit guys. Before and he's 1-2. Arguably, he's 0-3 versus these legit guys. Um, but the rest of his fights have been like his fight before that, he had a 50-50 fight with a guy with 5 wins and 5 losses. You know what I mean? So um, I'm not putting him down. I'm just speaking how I feel when I look at. I think he's good though. I ain't underestimating him. I think his toughness is his main attribute. He's a tough kid. You know, cuts a lot of weight. You know what I mean? He's all right, man. He's all right.
And now, what's the plan now for you as you go forward? Obviously, we talked in the beginning, right? You had those series of unfortunate events with having like visa issues and injuries and whatnot. Obviously, I know you like to stay pretty active. Is that going to be the game plan now going forward here? Pick up a win and then from there try to stay as active as you possibly can?
Yeah, well, I haven't been as active as I like over the last few years. You know what I mean? With obviously COVID and what have you, and then picking up a few injuries. But aside from the times I've picked up injuries, like the whole of 2021, even though I only had one fight, I was in the gym the whole year, training all the time. So I don't take no time off the gym. I train when I'm out of camp. I train twice a day, 6 days a week, no matter what. Obviously, in camp, I train even more. Um, so I'm very dedicated, you know what I mean? And I want to fight often. I want to fight minimum 2 times a year, preferably 3 times a year. So hopefully, you know, I ain't looking past this fight though. I'm just thinking of going in there and smashing this guy's face in because you never know. Like I could boss my hand on his face. That's another fucking couple of months at the gym. You know what I mean? So um, I'm just focused on this fight and smashing this guy, and then hopefully I can stay active after that.
All right, so now to end today, I do want to ask you a little bit about one of your teammates in the gym there with Leon Edwards. I know we alluded to him earlier. Of course, Leon, man, what a performance there with Kamaru Usman, right? That knockout's going to be a highlight shown for a long time in the UFC. What a moment there. I just want to get your thoughts on that knockout and what you were thinking as you were watching the fight going that last round.
Yeah, well, it's crazy, but you know, Leon he definitely deserves it. He works hard in the gym. He's a nice guy. He's a very nice person. You know what I mean? So he works hard in the gym. Actually, when I first started training MMA, you know, Leon was only in Bama then. He was just a bit, you know, in Bama. So when I first met Leon and that, um, you know, so it's been a long journey. I was very proud for him. You know, went and sit him with the belt, and you know, he's got like spray paint in the street. I've been seeing that and that. So, you know, it was a very happy moment and like proof to everyone that they can do it too. You know what I mean? Because I follow like the same sort of training program as him. I've got the same wrestling coach as him. I've got the same strength and conditioning coach as him. So I follow a similar training pattern to him. Really, obviously, I can't grapple with him. He's a big guy. He's a big welterweight. You know what I mean? So, um, but you know, I follow a similar training pattern to him. So, yeah, it's good. It just proves that what we're doing is working.
And I want to get your thoughts too on the rematch. I know there's no date booked for it yet, but UFC President Dana White's pretty much made it clear, right? That is going to be the next move for him. Just how you see the rematch playing out.
Well, I see this being a dominant win for Leon this time because I feel like the altitude affected him a lot on the rematch, the last fight. I feel like the altitude affected him a lot. He's obviously proved he can get Usman down to the ground. I feel like he's way better jiu-jitsu ability than Usman. He proved that he made a few mistakes like mounting him and not hitting him first, then taking his back or whatever. He made a few, but he knows he made these mistakes and he's going to improve on it. But I feel like his jiu-jitsu is way better than his. He can obviously take him down, and Usman knows now he can knock him out as well. I think it's going to be a more dominant performance this time, based on you know, obviously Usman lives at altitude. Rocky lives in Birmingham, which is not altitude. You know what I mean? So um, I feel like this time when it comes down to the UK, it's going to be an easier, better, a more dominant performance by Leon.
Okay, and then one last thing that I want to ask you about with that whole entire topic. We're going to go perfect world here. Perfect world, November 5th. You fight, you get out of there, no injuries, you get a win, stocks rising there. I know Dana White has said that he would love to do the Leon Edwards Kamaru Usman rematch somewhere in England, whether that be in London in a soccer stadium. But the plan is initially to do it somewhere over there. If that is the case, do you want to be on that card? That'd be pretty sweet. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, man, of course, because obviously I was supposed to be on the last, not the last card, but the card before that. I was supposed to be on the London one. Unfortunately, picked up an injury, so um, you know, beat this guy up, you know, and I'll have enough time to recover or whatever, and fight again in March on the Leon card. So yeah, that'll be perfect to do that.
All right, man. Thanks a lot for the time today. Last thing before we roll out, social media management sponsors. Anybody got to give a shout out to? I know you have the Paradigm hat on there. It says the representatives, the management team there. But anyway, yeah, man. Whoever you got to give shout outs to, floor is yours. Take it away.
Yeah, just shout out to, you know, my sponsors, you know, Santini Sports, Kitchen Prep, Fearless MMA, Renegade. 18Y, um, Elephant Mobile, UK Risk Limited. Obviously, shout out to Paradigm, shout out to my team. Yeah,
All right, Jake, thanks so much, man, for all the time today. Really appreciate it. And I really appreciate everyone watching today's interview. Just to remind everybody out there that Jake will be fighting at UFC Vegas 64, that fight date November 5th. And one last thing before I roll out, just to remind you guys, keep going to MyMMANews.com, checking out all of our great work. Go to our social media pages, give us a like and a follow on there. And just one last thing before you guys head out, if you like today's interview, make sure you go to the bottom, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel as well. We'll see you later, everybody.